Is it me or does it seem that everyone who knows anything about Joy Boy, Laugh Tale, and even the One Piece knows about it from Rock's Xebec? Big Mom, Kaido, and even Whitebeard were all on his crew, and there's a pretty good chance I think that Roger first learned about it from Rocks as well back on God Valley, since he only really started looking for the poneglyphs and caring about the final island after this incident. And so to me, genuinely, the biggest question in all of One Piece right now is, who really is Rock's Xebec? How did he manage to invade Marijoa all on his own? How did he know about the Flower Room and Emu, and how did he just casually threaten the secret ruler of the world with his own secret knowledge that he has? Because listen, this guy doesn't just wake up one day with world-conquering ambition and the ability to fold admirals like origami left and right. Well, actually he might have. This dude is all sorts of broken, it turns out, but somehow that just isn't the most important part here. This guy straight up knows way too much, way more than he should. Plus he clearly has some sort of big crazy master plan as well that still seems to somehow be going on today. And so I think it makes his origin story maybe the single most important puzzle piece when it comes to understanding his true plan and a lot of the things going on in the story. And the things that have been confirmed now are like break the internet levels of wild. Rock somehow clearly knew something about the ancient world. He spoke of a mythical figure named Davy Jones, and in my opinion, the biggest and craziest red flag here is that unlike anyone else in the normal One Piece world, he somehow knew about Emu, but not just that, had the balls to storm into the Room of Flowers. But we do know one other thing from chapter 1155, because for some reason, even though he killed an admiral and confronted Emu Manui's shadow, Xebec couldn't kill Emu there and then. In fact, the narrator does confirm this for us, and even though he may not have been strong enough to defeat Emu, the point for me still stands that somehow he learned the truth about everything, it seems. And the way I see it, there are a couple of great options here, one more intriguing and interesting than the next. For one, he could have had access to ancient texts about the history of the world, since we do know places like Elbaf and Ohara were a thing and had a lot of information regarding the Void Century. We also can piece together that he didn't get his info from Elbaf because he knew before ever going to the Land of Giants about everything, but maybe he just found something like a journal or a hidden library or something along those lines, right? That told him everything? I just don't think that's the most likely possibility, so let's instead move on to the next one. If he didn't stumble across this knowledge, then maybe he could have met someone who did know the truth and told him? Like, we do know that there have been scholars like Clover and Olbia who were researching the ancient history for ages, so it is not impossible that someone somewhere found out more than we know and then shared it with Rocks. But then we also can't rule out the idea that I like a lot, that he was possibly from a place where that kind of knowledge was just part of the air. Like, I don't know about you, but I've always really loved to imagine the idea that there's actually some sort of culture or society living on the final island of the Grand Line Lodestar, which is where Roger first learned about the poneglyphs according to the flashback, and which is the island where you're supposed to learn about the poneglyphs. So yeah, technically Luffy kind of cheated. So what if Rocks grew up there and learned all about the poneglyphs before even becoming a pirate? That could explain his insane knowledge advantage and how he knows secrets that literally no one outside the top tier of the world government even know about. Now, if you're addicted to One Piece theories like me, you might also have realized that it would be really interesting that he actually grew up on Laugh Tale itself. Now, I don't have a ton of evidence for this one, I really just think it's fun to think about, but I did recently talk about the idea that Rocks is from a cult who worship Davy Jones, and that maybe Davy is Joy Boy, right? So a society on Laugh Tale, those who worship Joy Boy, having a prodigy child in the form of Rocks Xebec would make sense if there are still people living there. It would also explain why he specifically knew so much, because he just got to skip the entire poneglyph part. He just knows the way home. So do you see what I'm saying here? Do you see the vision? It might be crazy, but you know, this is what we're here for after all, right? The crazy stuff. And so please buckle up with me, because we're gonna tip our toes into some very spicy controversy here. Because get this, Rocks is Luffy's mom. No, I'm just kidding. I think that Rocks knew about Joy Boy. We learned that Rocks considers himself a Davy Jones kind of pirate, and in the original Japanese, it even states that Rocks was a worshipper of Davy Jones. So yeah, I think that Davy is connected to Joy Boy potentially. And I'm also predicting our Matlet here certainly knew about the so-called first pirates. On top of that, Rocks seems to be the source of so many many people's knowledge about Joy Boy, as we said. Kaido was like the big Joy Boy person altogether and had somewhat of an idea about how to become Joy Boy or how to get Joy Boy to do what he needs to do, you get it? And Kaido needed to learn that from someone else. And even Roger himself might have gotten some insight about the importance of finding Laugh Tale from watching Rocks. But there are a few other ways that he could have come to learn all this stuff, and I do want to talk about a truly insane idea. So please don't go into the comments and rage at my crackpot theory quite yet. Just, check out your disbelief for now, enjoy the ride with me, and then when I'm all done, you can reevaluate it. So here we go. What if Rocks is just straight up from the Void Century, right? And time traveled into the present. Don't laugh, I'm serious. No, actually, please don't laugh. All right. Remember, we did see it with Odin's wife Toki during the Wano arc that it's possible. But what if she didn't just send herself forward in time? What if Rocks was sent forward from the Void Century? Or maybe he met someone else who was. I still feel like people don't quite realize just how insane it is that we have a literal time-traveling devil fruit, even if it's just forward into the future. And Toki is just one of the most forgotten characters in the story, and I absolutely believe that we'll be seeing it show up again sometime later in the story. Someone from the Void Century has to pop up in the current timeline, right? So if Rocks did come from that lost era, or even met someone who did, that would explain everything pretty well. The history, the urgency, the plan to take down Imu, it would all fit really nicely into place, wouldn't it? And I don't know, maybe I'm actually the one from the Void Century, and I might be the one who told Rocks everything that he knows. Wait, forget I said that? You weren't supposed to know about that one yet, no. But if someone else time traveling is way too wild for you, even though this is the same series where a skeleton plays violin for a living, then let's go with something a little bit more grounded. Let's go back to the voice of all things. So many important characters have this power, like Roger, Luffy, Momo. I guess Momo's kind of important. Yeah. So Rocks very well could have had it too. So maybe Rocks could hear the poneglyphs just like Roger. Just picture this. Rocks learns all about the poneglyphs. He spends the first 20 plus years of his life learning most of the true history. And then when he finally felt ready, he went up to confront Imu to kickstart his ultimate plan. I could absolutely see that being the case, and it could help explain why we don't ever see him searching for them after that point. But while we're trying to figure out Rocks' past, let's pivot for a second into the real world connections, because Oda does love himself some real world pirate history. Now maybe you've heard about this before, but there used to be a real life pirate named Rock Brasiliano, known for being a brutal, unpredictable Dutch privateer who was basically active around Brazil, who also suddenly one day disappeared without a trace. The name is obviously a clear inspiration for Rocks, but there is a crazy twist. In case you didn't know, a few years ago, Oda shared with us what he thinks each Straw Hat's actual country of origin would be if they lived in the real world. You can see it right here. And for Luffy specifically, he said that Luffy would be from Brazil, and where did Luffy grow up in the One Piece world? Dawn Island. So what if Rocks is also from Dawn Island? I mean, it would tie them together in a really wild way. And this part really drove me wild. If Rocks is from the same place as Luffy, that could mean that their entire journeys were just straight up meant to mirror each other. They both started at Dawn Island, both became powerhouses at a really early age, both started to learn the true history, and their paths continue from there. Of course, their main difference seems to be that Rocks saw the world and chose domination or replacing Imu. Luffy sees it more and is like, I just want to be really free. And I do know I'm going on and on about Rocks' possible history, but I just feel like it's really important. I hope you feel the same way. So here's another connection that just occurred to me when Davy Jones was mentioned, because did you know that in Japanese, L's and R's are basically the same, right? Like anything that's an L and an R would be written with rari-ru-re-ro. It's like in between, right? So you could technically write or read Rocks as Locks, which could be a reference to Davy Jones's locker. Maybe he's the guardian of ancient truths. Maybe he escaped Davy Jones's locker, right? Maybe his entire mission is to unlock the truth that's been buried for centuries. Or since we're going really crazy here, maybe he has Imu's heart locked in a box somewhere, like Davy Jones had his locked away in Pirates of the Caribbean? All right. I do promise I'm coming back to reality slowly and with resistance, but here's one more idea I just have to talk about, even if it's a little bit of a long shot. And I have to because I'm just way too excited about it. Because what if Rock Rox saw himself not as the good version of Nika and Joy Boy, but you know, the destructive version. Kind of like an anti-Joy Boy, the one who looked at the idea of liberation and said, I'll do whatever I want, not because of friendship, but because I'm the baddest guy around. He could be the twisted version of what Luffy's doing, something that the Giants kind of have hinted at, that there might have been a chaotic and more destructive version of Nika too. Uniting the seas, but just by power and force with the Davy backfights instead of freedom and friendship. And well, maybe Rox does like freedom, but more in an anarchist type way. Violent, take whatever you want kind of freedom, you know? Which does bring up a totally different question. How did Rox even get so crazy strong? Like, some people are still holding on to the fraud allegations, but this dude seems to be a monster. Like, a true powerhouse. My man killed a freaking admiral, which has never been done before in the story, so clearly he had to have been training and fighting somewhere for all these years. He also clashed with Harold, and Imu didn't do anything trying to kill or attack them when they were in the flower room. I think you just don't get that level strong by sitting around and singing Kumbaya until you're 40, right? We do know characters get stronger through battle, especially in One Piece. And so I'm just out here dying to know who in the world he fought against all those years. Like, Mihawk's dad, maybe? Am I crazy? Probably. But I will throw my desk out the window if I'm right, because holy, that would be absolutely insane. Like, we just don't know so much about that in-between era, right? Before Roger's era, kind of. However Rox got his strength, though, it kind of led us to one of the boldest moves in One Piece history, which we saw in chapter 1155, Rox Xebec breaking into the Holy Land. And let's just break down all the insane things that he did there by himself, dare I add. Alright, you ready? First up, he fights an admiral who later on dies, kidnaps multiple kings, and somehow makes it all the way to the Room of Flowers, which no one is even supposed to know exists. Then he just casually sits there and yells at Imu like it's nothing, strapped up, and points his flint Glock at him cool style and tries to extort Imu with the kidnapped kings. Turns out that doesn't work, big shocker, and so the man drops some more lore and then dips without anyone coming close to even trying to stop him. And then he just dips without anyone coming even close to being able to stop him. Like, say less, steady go off, dude. I still can't believe what we read here. So, the real question is, what was he really after here? I mean, the obvious thing is that it looks like he wanted to force a negotiation with Imu, right? That's why he kidnapped the kings. He kind of wanted to get something. But whatever happened in that room, Rox didn't leave with what he came for. Imu clearly shut him down. I don't know how high his expectations really were for that to work. He didn't seem two-faced, maybe. So was that it? Was that really Rox's only big plan? Because if so, that seems straight up like, not to be rude, a Luffy level plan. Show up, bust the place up a little bit, yell loudly, demand what you want. But Imu didn't give in, obviously, so that was it? No backup? Or did he really just want to meet Imu face to face and threaten them a little bit? Maybe he was just like, hey, don't go feeling too safe over here. I know you're here. I know what your weakness is. Looking at you. Now, maybe that was the real purpose. Maybe that's just what he came here for. Oh, and also quick side note, where in the world were the Holy Knights? Where was Garling? Where were the 5 Gorosei? Seriously, maybe Garling saw Rox coming and decided, you know what, today's my day off, the big guy can handle it himself, probably. But honestly, their absence almost feels intentional. Maybe Imu wanted to meet Rox alone, to judge him, to see if he truly was a threat. It is kind of weird, don't you think? Anyways, the real key here is that this can't be all of Rox's true plan. He must have wanted more, and that's why he really started his work only truly after his attack and raid on Marijoa. Which, by the way, can I quickly also say that Marijoa gets raided quite frequently. MF did it, Kuma did it, the revolutionaries did it, Rox did it. You'd think that them like building their castle 10,000 meters above ocean level with like only one entrance would hinder people from doing crazy stuff like that, but apparently it's fairly easy to get in, I guess. Just waiting for Luffy to drop in at some point too. Anyways, at this point in the story, Rox now needs 2 things. Money and a powerful crew, basically. Crewmates to help him accomplish his true plan, and money to fund his operations. So in true pirate fashion, he attacked government ships to steal money, and then attacked pirate ships to, you know, gather some of the strongest pirates in the world. Pirates like Shiki, Whitebeard, a bunch of others that we actually see talking for the first time ever in this chapter. That needs its own video. coming soon, but I'm just so curious why he only did this now. Like, did he really think that he could accomplish all of his goals solo, but then after confronting Emu, he realized he couldn't? Or was this just the next step in his plan anyways? You know, very similar to Blackbeard. Step 1, throw down a warning and prepare everything. And then step 2, start building an army for the final phases of the plan. It is almost exactly what Blackbeard did. Pre-planning and doing a lot of groundwork at the beginning, and then forming his crew, and then really executing everything. But honestly, whether he was trying to follow in Joy Boy's footsteps or not, his true reason for needing a crew seems like it all pointed to God Valley. Whatever Rox was really doing and planning in the background, it all came to head on that island. Now, let me tell you, I have written down so many ideas for what Rox really was after here. We do know that there was some sort of treasure from Hachinosu that the world government stole from him, but did they steal it from Rox, or did they steal it before Rox took over Hachinosu? We now know that there was quite a ton of gold there, but I have to imagine there was a lot more than just gold, something more special or unique. And the only reason that the Rox pirates came to God Valley was to take that thing back. But was that all? And what was the treasure? One easy answer, of course, is that it was some sort of devil fruit. We do know that there were many important fruits there, and from the dialogue of the Rox pirates, it seems like that's what many of them were actually after. So were they after the Nika fruit? Or maybe also more likely the darkness fruit? That's the one Blackbeard was so obsessed with after all. So it would make sense that his father wanted to find it as well. So what if Rox spent his life looking for it and never found it? Like, that was the one missing part of his plan all along, the thing he needed to hurt or, you know, defeat Emu, but then Blackbeard continues that. Also, another thing that confuses me here is that if they were so interested in the treasure from Pirate Island and it was a devil fruit, why didn't they just eat it right away? Like, they obviously had it on Pirate Island, so yeah, that doesn't really check out too well unless they can't eat it yet. I don't know. Or unless they were really after one of the other devil fruits instead. But let's also try to not get too narrowed in here. What if they weren't only after devil fruits, or not only trying to reclaim the treasure of Hachinosu, because they could have had an additional reason for being there? We do know that the Gorosei were also here on the island, so Rox could have been after one of them. We do know that the Gorosei are an important part of Blackbeard's plan because Katarina Devon here decided to touch Saturn so that she can at some point copy and impersonate him. So was that part of Rox's plan too? If I remember correctly, we also learned that the Gorosei stopped coming down to the surface as much after God Valley happened, so this could legitimately be the reason. Rox maybe tried to take one of them or one of their powers, and I actually really like this idea, especially because we know there is one of the guys who looks way younger than the others and kind of feels out of place in many ways. We've talked about this before, so he might have been freshly appointed after God Valley. But I know you want to get things to get crazy, right? So here's another idea that I am insanely excited about. And yes, this is mostly speculation. I don't have too much proof for it, but I do want to talk about it anyways because it's a really fun idea I've been toying around with, which is the fact that maybe Emu somehow trapped the ancient gods mentioned in the Harley text. You know, like the forest god, the sun god, the sea god, and the earth god. What if one of those gods was trapped on God Valley and Rox was trying to free the gods, or the god that was captured there or something like that? It would explain why this place is called God Valley in the first place, and there's a lot of weird things about it, like the two mountains that look like a giant, you know, sword or something came down. It's a whole different video. If you'd like to see this, please let me know in the comments. It's a little bit crackpot, but I think it would be fun making. So if you want to see that, let me know. Anyways, whatever Rox was really after, I just can't decide if Rox, you know, would have completed his plan on God Valley, or if that was just another step, you know, followed by more steps. Smooth, Manu. Like, if Rox was successful at God Valley, would he have been ready to go back to Marijoa? It's possible, at least. I mean, a crew like the one that he created would have been pretty much the only force in the world that could actually successfully attack all of the Marine and world government forces at the same time and have a pretty realistic chance of winning. Whatever the case though, Rox formed his crew for a clear purpose that he could not achieve on his own, and just like Rox, I want you for my crew so we can continue making super special content for you on this channel, and you can do that by checking out my Patreon, where we make a ton of unique bonus content just for you, handcrafted, hand-selected artwork. And if you still want to get some perks but you don't have money to support the channel, we have a free weekly newsletter for you guys with updates and news about anything One Piece related coming out too. So yeah, go check that out if you want. Anyways, this next part is where things get absolutely crazy for me, and where I kind of want to start tearing out my hair, because this chapter gave us pretty clear evidence, I think, that Rox wasn't just collecting random strong people, right? He was targeting specific individuals. Like, he knew who he wanted, and one of them was none other than King Harold of Elbaf. And sure, I mean, come on, Harold is clearly powerful. This guy's stocks have gone up for me insanely in the last 2 chapters. The King of the Giants had this mega clash with Rox and Marijoa that might be a top 3 hockey feat in the entire story. Out of nowhere, by the way. But with all the monsters already on Rox's crew, why did Rox want Harold specifically so badly? Well, for one, it could be tied to prophecy and something like the Elbaf mural. Now, to be clear, Rox didn't get the idea of a crew full of different people from Elbaf, but if Rox was really trying to recreate this type of crew that Joy Boy had, then it seems like he would need an ancient giant like Harold to be part of it. But Harold, of course, just kept saying, nah, don't wanna. And of course, if Rox really just wanted an ancient giant, there was Loki, who also had ancient giant blood and already asked to join his crew, but no, Rox wanted Harold specifically. Now, was this because Harold was mostly trying to get along with the world government, or did Rox think that Harold knew more secrets about the ancient past that were important to his true goal? That would explain why he went so hard trying to recruit him, unless Harold is even more broken than we all thought and was like beyond Yonko level. I don't know, maybe, but you know, seems kind of wild if that's the case. But if it was knowledge related, it might explain why Harold also refused all the time. Maybe he sensed that Rox was gonna go down a dark path, like he knew Rox was trying to be Nika, but there was just too much potential for destruction and Harold just didn't want to get involved with this. But slightly shifting direction here, you know what was one of the most unexpected lore drops in chapter 1155? The true history of Pirate Island, or Hachinosu. And I freaking love this part because it could explain why Rox made it his base of operation in general, but also on top of everything, I just love world building and getting like backstories and history to all these cool places that we know. Anyways, apparently before it became the pirate capital, Hachinosu was basically a dumping ground for prisoners. Basically what this means is that kingdoms would send unwanted people there to just rot, people they didn't want to deal with. So I guess big Australia vibes. Shout out to my Aussie friends. How's it going, guys? From down under, let me know. G'day. All right. What I'm getting at here is that there were tons of kangaroos on Pirate Island. No, I'm just playing. No. Instead, someone someday found a bunch of gold, and suddenly all these castaways who were supposed to die started thriving. It does seem like they got some support from the underworld, like criminal or literal is a little bit unclear here, but boom, suddenly the island became a livable, lawless paradise. And so when Rox came and eventually took control of Hachinosu, it might have looked like a typical pirate move. Get the gold, build a base, recruit the worst of the worst, pirate stuff. But maybe there was even more to it. Because what if there was another treasure hidden deep in that island, something from the Void Century or tied to the original Joy Boy? That would explain why the world government never wiped it off the map. Maybe they just couldn't. Perhaps something like, I don't know, an ancient weapon, Pluton, or much more likely, perhaps an ancient weapon like Uranus, or maybe like 12 pounds of black truffles. Who knows? Equally valuable probably in the One Piece world. And when you think about how Blackbeard is now so hellbent on ruling Hachinosu the same way that Rox did, even wanting to make it an official kingdom, it really makes you wonder, what in the world is it about this island that is so important to Rox and his son? Maybe it does actually all tie back to the origins of the Davy Back fight, since this island is apparently the origin of the famous pirate game. Alright, but now that I brought up the big beefy Yonko in the room, let's talk about one part of Rox's plan that has got me really scratching my brain here. Why did Rox want to have a child? That was one of the craziest reveals in the previous chapter, right? Rox Xebec is confirmed Blackbeard's father, and low-key confirmed to be Buggy's father too. Like, bounty posters in this chapter got me. But like, why? Why is everyone trying to have babies? I don't get, like, Roger the same thing. The timeline makes this even more interesting because Blackbeard was born 2 years before God Valley, right at when he officially established the Rock's pirate crew and had taken over Hachinosu and was now fully focused on his mission exactly the same year. So why, in the middle of all of that chaos, would he suddenly decide to have a kid? Was it an accident? Sure, that's always a possibility. He did have some real hotties on his crew. Pirate's gonna pirate, and looking at his explosive sword style, I don't think a rubber would do Big Dog here any good. He's delivering some conquer her hockey. You feel okay. No? Alright. But it does feel too important to be random is what I'm saying here. Think about Roger. He had Ace on purpose, almost crafting the perfect D, which is, by the way, what Rocks gave. Roger had a kid even though he knew he was gonna die. And there's this pattern of One Piece which is really weird of these legendary pirates and criminals like Dragon also wanting to pass something on when they realize that their time is short or that they don't, get to do their thing in their lifetime. Maybe Rocks had the very same thought. Maybe after his confrontation with Emu, after failing to get what he wanted, he knew that he wouldn't make it all the way, so he had a kid to carry on his will. Wait a second, did Rocks have a thing with Emu? And there's an even wilder theory floating around that Rocks' soul somehow keeps living inside Blackbeard. Maybe some sort of Ope Ope no Mi soul switching shenanigans? That would mean that Rocks didn't want an heir, but more so a vessel to quite literally carry him around. Which is just creepy to the max, but we do know that there's something off about Blackbeard's body and his soul. This has been speculated about a lot, and this way Rocks could still possibly fulfill his own statement to Emu about coming back to confront the secret ruler of the Holy Land. But alright, so we've broken down Rocks' life and his motivations, but what exactly was Rocks trying to pass down to the next generation here? Well, the clearest thing I see is that he wanted to take down Emu and maybe rule the world. Like, Blackbeard basically inherited that same idea exactly, but it also seems like Rocks was trying to fulfill the will of D just in his own way. Remember, the D clan are the enemies of the gods, so in Rocks' eye, that meant taking down the god in any way possible, even through brutal or violent means, I guess. But regardless, as far as we know, he never went back to fight Emu, as far as we know, so maybe he knew the timing just wasn't right. Just how Roger realized that he also was too early, so maybe Rocks saw that he didn't have enough power or time yet. Maybe he thought he would change that at God Valley by gaining the right devil fruits. But you probably already see how this always brings us back to his son. Did Rocks want to pass on the Nika or Darkness fruit to Blackbeard, just like Roger hoped that Ace would inherit his will? I don't know, that's what I'm thinking for now, and I wouldn't be too surprised if Blackbeard plays a major role in taking down Emu by the end of the story too, potentially, as ironic as that may sound. Which brings us all the way back to Rocks' line about Davy Jones, because at this point we can sort of lock down that they were a real person or a divine being in the One Piece world. So was Davy Jones Joy Boy? Is he actually a dark god captured and detained by the mighty Emu? Or maybe, just maybe, is Davy Jones Luffy's mom? Well, to find out, you can see my full breakdown of all those secrets by watching this video right here. Otherwise, as always, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much to all of our special and cool and beautiful and smart Patreon supporters. You guys rock, all of them here. You can have your name here. Go check it out. And I will see you in the next one. And psst, we're not done with Rocks.